Welcome to another episode. What are you reading? What are you writing? A weekly video podcast features creatives, writers, and readers when we come together to talk about books. I am your host, Karen E. Osborne, author of 4 novels and counting. I am so glad you're here. I think you're going to enjoy our next guest. I am so happy when my two worlds come together. My whole philanthropy, fundraising, alumni relations world that I spent so many years in, and my writing world. And my guest has that same lovely, uh, you know, confab. So this is Jenn. Do you want Jennifer?
I'm
You,
Jenn. I'm
you're
my
Jenn.
writing persona is Jenn
Okay, good. And you pronounce your last name Bouchard?
Bouchard. Yep.
Yes. So my guest today is Jenn Bouchard, who I evidently met several years ago, but just on the phone.
The phone.
And- yes, when the Osborne Group was consulting for Bates College in Maine, and Jenn was and still is, right, a volunteer.
Yes.
Yeah. So hey, Jenn, we're so glad you are
Hi.
here.
Thanks,
So
Karen.
So Jenn is an award-winning author of women's fiction and one of my faves, romantic comedy. And her new novel is Considering Us. And I can't wait to talk about that. Maybe we could just start with volunteering. I am a serial volunteer and I love meeting a long-standing volunteer. So can you tell our audience just a little bit about your volunteer life?
Sure, I'm the same way. I have a hard time saying no to a good cause, but it's I don't know. Somehow the clock has to expand. The hours in the day have to expand to fit it all in. But yes, you and I became a little acquainted with each other quite a bit ago. I am a volunteer for my alma mater, Bates College, and at the time that we connected, I was the president of the Alumni Association. So I was in that role for 2 years. Prior to that, I was the vice president for a year. And before that, I was, a general member of the Alumni Council for a number of years. It was something that was really important to me. I was asked if I wanted to join the Alumni Council, which is sort of the governing body of the Alumni Association at Bates, when I had an infant. And getting that call was so nice because I was like, wow, I'm a full-time high school teacher, so I have that going on. But to have something separate from everything else was exactly what I needed, and it became such an important part of my life. And like when you're in one of these really big volunteer roles, like president for 2 years of an alumni association, when it's over, you just sort of feel like you're being dropped off of a cliff, and you're like, okay, now what? And I have done a lot of fundraising for Bates since then. I'm on the Bates Fund Executive Committee. We have regular meetings, and it's very important work. I have been the gift chair for my last few reunions as well. We do reunions every 5 years. So just this June, I was the coach. I was the chair of the gift. I'm sorry, the gift part of things. There was another social committee, but I was the chair of the gift, and we were really successful. We raised over $92,000 for the Bates Fund, and that was great. That's our annual fund. So we had a really good time. It was great to have so many people back on campus. But kind of going back to the president thing, when that was over, I was looking for something new for myself. And I still remember my family, my kids were really little. We were at the beach at the end of summer, and I said to my husband, I think I want to try to write a novel. And he's like, okay, go for it. And so it really was that volunteer role that I was in and that ending that led to all of this.
It's very cool. Yeah. Um, So are you still volunteering? You said you still volunteer for Bates.
I am. I am. I was just up on campus for a Bates Fund Executive Committee meeting at the end of September, and I am my lead class agent. So I do most of the solicitations of my classmates, as well as some Bates alumni in some neighboring classes, just sort of as as the college needs me to. But yes, I am still very involved. But that role as president was significant. I enjoyed it so much. I got to know people from so many different decades of Bates
Mhm.
alumni, and some of them became really good friends of mine. People
Oh,
who are 25 years older than me in some cases, and it's been lovely. It's been just really nice to expand my world in that way.
that's a wonderful example of all the joys of volunteering. I have a little too much purpose, too much volunteering in my life, but writing is the other thing that we share, right? And I do, as I mentioned, love rom-coms. So tell me about Considering Us. Tell us what the premise is.
Well, considering us stemmed from, I'm a full-time high school social studies teacher, and teaching during the pandemic was stressful, as you can imagine at times. Policies were changing constantly, protocols were changing. At one time, I was managing 10 groups of students instead of the usual five. And sort of at the end, as things were starting to wind down and things were improving, I said, I just need to write something really fun, really light. And Considering Us was what came out of that. I decided my thing is coastal New England. So my first course was set in coastal Maine. Written another book called Palms on the Cape, which is set on Cape Cod, which it was supposed to be published, and my publisher ended up folding. So I'm working on finding a new home for that. But Considering Us is set in the Portsmouth, New Hampshire area along the New Hampshire sea coast, which is a very small stretch of seacoast, but it's really nice. And I love Portsmouth. I was just there on Monday. It is the most charming town. And so I created a fictitious island right off of Portsmouth, and that's where I put this boarding school, which is the main setting for the book. And it's about the main character is Devin Page. She is a private chef in Boston. She becomes embroiled in a scandal, mostly of her own doing. She makes a big mistake, and she ends up losing most of her clients except for one. She manages to hold on to a reclusive basketball player, a player on the Celtics who just, he does not really fit in with the rest of them socially, but he's really talented. And so she continues to once a week bring him food. But that's not going to be enough to keep up with her costs in Boston, which is a very expensive place to be. So through her best friend Tam, she gets connected with someone who is the head of school almost by accident in New Hampshire. And they need a director of dining. They just had a major shakeup of their own. And Devin is offered the job. She needs it. She can't survive without another significant chunk of income. And so she takes it. When she gets there, she finds that the one who got away 15 years ago, Kyle Holling, is working there as a soccer coach and history teacher.
Fate plays a hand.
Yes.
So what do you love about Devon? What's really cool about her?
So she is a little bit feisty. She had a tough upbringing. Once we meet her parents, it becomes very clear that she is really nothing like them. Her dad is a nice guy, but he's just kind of overpowered by a really overbearing and sort of a strange way mother. And so she's sort of had to find her own way, find her found family. I like to write about found family a lot in my books.
Mm,
And she's not perfect. She makes mistakes, but over the course of the book, she starts to realize, that she did make some mistakes and that there is a path forward for her. But she's also really committed when she comes across Kyle again, he's just like, oh, this is fate. We were supposed to end up here together. And he
yeah.
basically, let's get back together right now. And And she's just like, no, 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 slow it down. We need to get to know each other as adults and, develop a friendship and just see what's here. And that's what they do. And that was the most fun part of it for me in so many ways, was just allowing them to grow and get to know each other.
Yeah. And what do you like about him?
So he's divorced. He has a young daughter named Annie. His ex-wife and daughter are living in Boston at this point. They had been up at the school with him, and so he's trying. And Annie's just Annie's different than him, and she's into acting and things like that. And so he's trying to understand her. He's trying to understand, why his wife didn't want to be married to him anymore. So he's trying to do a lot of soul searching in this whole process. Um, but he's a history teacher and a soccer coach. And the history teacher, I'm a history teacher as well, so I had so much fun with this. He's the most popular teacher on the campus, and he's really good at telling stories around presidents, like presidential trivia, making it really engaging for students. And this is one of my favorite things to do in class, is to tell these stories about, just really quirky stories about presidents, what kind of weird pets some of them had, and strange assassination attempts and things like that. So he does this, throughout the whole book. He's telling these stories, and that was super fun. He's kind of a mess sometimes. He's oftentimes, sort of disheveled. He's probably picking clothes up off the floor to put on. Sees these, Devin makes these amazing cookies, and anywhere the cookies are, he finds them, and, he's like talking, or he's covered in cookie crumbs and things like that. He's kind of a mess, but he's so charming at the same time. You can't help
Mm.
but fall in love with him.
Oh, sounds so good. Sounds wonderful. So people always ask me, and I don't ask every author who comes on, but I try and ask it every third or fourth interview, um, how long it takes. So here you are, you're a mom, and you are a full-time teacher, and you're a volunteer, and you're writing. How long does it take you to write a book? And what's that process like?
Well, when I wrote my first book, I had no idea what I was doing at all. It took me 2.5 years to write a first draft, and I don't even write long books. But I have to say, for this book, I was able to draft it in 6 months. So I started writing it as soon as school was out that summer. I wrote it in the summer of 2022. Um, so I started writing it as soon as school was out at the end of June, and by Christmas time, I had finished drafting it. Let it sit for a few weeks. I didn't touch it. I went through it again myself, and then I sent it over to a friend of mine who reads a lot of things that I write. She gave me her thoughts, her notes, and then I, went through it again, and got it about as good as I could. And so that was in February of 23 when I did that. So, the whole thing, I think, start to finish for me now is about 8 months. Um, I'd love to be a little quicker. I just don't see it happening right now with my work schedule. But I have friends who are able to write 2 books a year, and I just think that that is amazing. I'm just not going to be there for a while.
Yeah, that I find that amazing too. And I know that one of the reasons is because I have so many other interesting things in
Right.
my life. I love being a writer, but I also love all the other things that I have in my life that keep me engaged and so I I don't think I could ever do I've had 2 books, but one of them I wrote a long time ago. And, but as opposed to starting to finish, yeah. So 8 months sounds pretty darn good to me, Jen.
Well,
Sounds
thank you.
good to me. Are you working on anything now?
I am. I tried to start a book last summer, and I planned the whole thing out, and I got about a chapter and a half in, and I didn't like it, and I threw it out. So I definitely got behind on my own schedule a little bit. So this past summer, I did start writing another book, and I've definitely been much looser with it this time, a little bit more of a pantser than a plotter, as they say, and it's been fun. I am in good shape with it. I'm hoping to be done by the end of the calendar year with the draft. It's another rom-com. It's a female high school baseball coach and a male high school softball coach are the two main characters. And right now I'm in the middle of writing this major conflict between the two of them, which has been kind of fun, kind of frustrating, kind of fun because everything has seemed really perfect until this point, and then she found some stuff out. So that's definitely fun right now. She has the upper hand in the situation, and that's great.
It's cool. That's what I like also about considering us. I love the fact that he's like, "Oh, let's be together," and she's, that's often a flip,
Right.
So I love that. That sounds really, really good. So this is called "What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing?" And so we love hearing about books.
Yes.
And were there some books that you read at whatever age you were that had a big impact on the writer who you are now?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I was a voracious reader. I was in a military family and I moved every 2 years, so books and music were things that I really was clinging to because they were the things that were constant. Books were always there. And so I read a lot of Nancy Drew and things like that when I was younger. I was really into the Sweet Valley High books, the Babysitter's Club books. But then also Catcher in the Rye is one of my favorites, The Outsiders, books along those lines. And then, as an adult, I would say the author who's had the biggest influence on me has been Jennifer Weiner. And
Yeah.
she hits it out of the park every time. It's truly amazing. Um I read The Getaway not that long ago, and it's about bikes, and she's gotten really into biking in her own personal life. And I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to be into this because I'm not, I ride my bike like once a year when I'm on Cape Cod with my family. It was so good. She did it in such a way that it was not all about, someone's personal journey on a bike or anything like that. Like, I mean, it truly was such a multi-layered, compelling story. She's awesome. I got to meet her in Newport, Rhode Island. She did a book event the day after my first book debuted, and I literally drove down to Newport in torrential downpours, this horrific storm. I was like, I am going to this event. And I actually ran into her in the bathroom before it started. This is one of my favorite stories. And I was waiting for a stall. She comes in and I go, "It's you." And she said, "It's me." That was really, and we just kind of had like small talk, but that was about it. And it was so funny. And then the book event was great. Um, and I have a signed book from her that says "To My Bathroom Companion." So that was fantastic.
So that is wonderful. To be a fangirl is always, you hope that you're acting professionally and that you're reading these folks that are, your idols. And then you find yourself like,
I
so
know.
exciting. And she sounded very gracious. So I
Oh,
think
she was fantastic. She was
that
great.
sounds really, really good.
She's very funny. I mean, her books are always funny, but she is very funny in person. So.
Yeah. Is there anything recent that you've read that you can recommend to our
Yeah, I
audience?
just read Nicholas D. Domizio's Nearly Wed, which I really enjoyed a lot because I like these coastal New England books, and it was
Mm.
about a resort on the Connecticut seashore that was geared towards couples before they got married. And so it was an interesting kind of twist on things, and I really enjoyed that a lot. And he is someone that our first books were debuting around the same time, so we knew each other a little bit on social media. So I was really, really excited to read his book and to support him. I'm about to start finally. I have not read Meg Mitchell Moore's Vacation Land about Maine, and that is what's sitting on my nightstand right now. So I'm really excited to read that. I always enjoy picking up books about the areas that
That you
I'm
care
really
about.
excited about. And I did just pick up this week. When I was in Portsmouth, I picked up Rebecca Mackay's book about that's set in a boarding school in New Hampshire as well, and that's a thriller. Um, but I'm excited to read another New Hampshire boarding school book.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. So now you've got our audience very intrigued. They want to meet you, they want to read your books, they want to be in touch. Tell them how they can be in touch with you and how they can
Sure.
find your books.
Sure. So I am so considering us is going to be publishing on February 6th, and I've got a number of events that are in the works around that right now. So as I add to my events calendar, everything is going to be found on my website, jennbouchard.com. That's Jen with two N's. And I'll be updating that with everything that I book. So please check that out. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it right now. And it's at Jenn Bouchard, BOS for Boston.
This is great. So I hope that you are totally intrigued and you can't wait to meet Jenn and follow her and see what's going on with her debut, with her, it's not a debut, with her pub date when it's coming out. I hope that you're already following me on Facebook and my YouTube channel and Instagram. I've kind of given up on X, but I'm there, but I don't really engage anymore there. And at my website as well. And when you do get in touch with Jenn, please tell her that you met her. What are you reading? What are you writing? Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.